DevOps security best practices. DevOps security has certain best practices that you should follow. These are as follows. You should review the code in smaller size. Never tend to review code which is very large and you want to review the entire application at one go. Do not make that mistake. Review the codes in bits and pieces so that you are able to review it properly. You should also implement change management process. Now, as and when there are changes taking place in the application, which is already in the deployment stage, you do not want developers to keep adding code to it or add or remove features. So therefore, the only thing that can help you at this stage is you should implement the change management process. So every change that needs to be made to the application should go through the change management process. Once it is approved, then the developer should be allowed to make change. Several organizations, after putting the application in production, which is the live environment, do not review the application. As per the DevOps security best practice, you should review the application on continuous basis. You should keep reviewing its code. You should keep doing a lot of security tests to ensure that no new security loopholes have been introduced. On the security best practices and the security guidelines, you should also train the development team on security best practices. So for instance, if a new developer has joined the team and he or she does not know about SQL injection, then you have to ensure that the developer is aware what SQL injection is, what is that it does, and what kind of harm it can cause to the application. You may not want to go into technicality of this, but however, at the broad level, you need to ensure that development team is updated with the new security norms, guidelines, and best practices. You should also develop security processes and implement. Of course, security itself cannot run without processes. You need to have specific security processes in your organization and then implement them. And after the implementation, there would be possibilities that you would have to revise the processes because the certain things did not work as anticipated or the process was too complicated. There could be any reason. So you would have to revise these security processes. But whatever is done, you have to ensure after the implementation, security processes are being monitored and they are being audited. You should also implement a DevOps plus security model, which is known as DevSecOps. So along with DevOps, you would also include security in this model. Later in the course, we will also look at the DevSecOps model. You should also implement security governance. Remember, governance is a must thing to do when you're talking about security. You need to monitor, you need to ensure everything is running as it's supposed to be running. Use DevOps security automation tools. Avoid the manual work. Bring the automation tools into the picture so that with the automation tools, not only you can do the testing, but you can also build repeatable tests against an application. You should also implement vulnerability assessment. This needs to be done on frequent basis, and whatever security loopholes are found, then you have to fix them. You should also implement configuration management. In the previous slide, we talked about building change management process. Now, change management process is also part of configuration management. So you need to ensure what configuration you're dealing with, what changes are happening in the application, who's authorizing them, who's approving them. So all this will fall under configuration management. In the DevOps security best practices, one of the key thumb rule is that you should use the least privilege model. Never give more privileges to a developer than required. So if you do not require them to have root or admin access, do not give them. Give them a regular user access so that they can work. You should also segregate the DevOps network. We have already looked at this point in one of the previous slides. Use privilege password management. You should ensure that privilege passwords in the DevOps lifecycle are secured. Under no circumstances these passwords should be shared with the other users or should get compromised. You should also implement auditing and review. This needs to be done on continuous basis. There should be regular audits, not only of the application, but also of the environment, of the security processes and the data that it collates.